want to use it. Yeah. Someone did get called that on the airplane. Otherwise, so if you want to just stand if you can, just the mourners, just the ones with the ribbons, please. No. No, they can sit with you. No, but you're going to do the Korea first. You could sit, it doesn't matter. I just need to break you. We're going to do a prayer. Okay. Yeah, they can sit. It's the six of you.
I hope everyone has turned off their phones or moved it into the silence position. For those that don't know me, I'm Amy Altschuld. Carol is my beloved aunt. I want to thank you all for being here today as we honor and celebrate the life of our beautiful Carol. I'm going to begin with a beautiful poem that I enjoy by Yehuda Halevi. It's called "'Tis a Fearful Thing." 'Tis a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be. To be and oh to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. I'm going to chant the beautiful Psalm 23. Sadly, and too often we associate this poem with death and passings. And I rather prefer the translation of Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi of blessed memory, who said that, as with many translations over centuries, there are different misinterpretations of words and different definitions or understandings. And Reb Zalman said that he preferred to think of the line in this poem that says, "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," that we weren't speaking about the psalmists weren't speaking about actual death, but the valleys and difficulties in any life long lived, that the challenges we face are little deaths, and that when we move through this death, through a valley, there is always another height. And we find that the light always remains on the other side. And no matter how deep the valley, behind is always the light. So I prefer this thought when chanting this beautiful psalm. Adonai roi lo echsar Bino deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovev Yancheni b'magalei tzedek, Yancheni b'magalei tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeitz al mavet, Lo ira, ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lifanai. Shulchan neged sorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi, kozi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yedifuni, Kol yamei, haya, veshavti, bevet Adonai, lo rech yamim, Adonai roi, lo echsar, Adonai roi lo echsar. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. Adonai makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us today to honor and celebrate our beloved Carol. You know, usually I have to gather with families before officiating a funeral to find out about the deceased, but today is very different. Carol knew me my entire life, and I got you guys beat by a few years. Carol Friedman Lader, born in Akron, September 10th, 1936, to George and Edith Friedman of blessed memory, dearly loved sister of Janet and Alan and their beautiful families. She met my mother's little brother, Marvin, and started the most wonderful family, blessing us with three of some of the greatest humans that I know, Deborah, David, and Ellen, and their amazing families. Devoted son-in-law, Michael, and their fabulous grands, Evan, Daniel, his wife, Christina, Jonah, Eli, Hannah, Linnea, and Noah. And friends. Friends, so many friends. I remember how much I loved going over to Aldersgate when I was a child. As a young woman, I thought Aunt Carol was the most beautiful woman I had ever met. I loved her blonde hair. Coming from the darker, wacky, disorganized side of the family, her grace and dignity and sense of style always amazed me. Brilliant, talented, amazingly creative, she was the Jewish poem would call her an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, who seemingly tackled everything that life threw her way, raising great children, working, engaging, and helping others with philanthropies. She did it all. And then, as an adult, I got to know the delightfully sassy, silly, fun Aunt Carol, still maintaining all her other talents, as everyone can surely attest. She was just an amazing human that everyone who knew her loved. We may be sad today because we say goodbye to the physical presence of Carol, but the rabbis tell us that a broken heart is not a bad thing, but rather a good thing and a healthy thing, because where we are wounded, we have an opportunity to grow stronger. And like the great poet Leonard Cohen sang, it's at the break where the light gets in. Carol shined her light into the world for a full 89 years. She honored all our greatest Jewish values of love, of family and friends, of justice. She was a lifelong, virulent Democrat, of truth, and brought so much beauty to the world through her creativity and design. As the physicists tell us in the law of the conservation of energy, that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, so it exists forever. So too, I like to believe that Aunt Carol and all those who have gone before will never be gone, but rather they are just less organized. I think Aunt Carol will figure out a way to become organized again. Zichrona livracha, may her memory always be a blessing and bring a smile and a warmth to your hearts. I know it will for me. Rest in peace, my sweet friend and kind, generous spirit, Aunt Carol. You are dearly missed already. I'd like to call up.
Well, I was fortunate enough to have my beautiful niece, Amy, say most of what I wanted to say. And Carol always told me that less was more, so this will be very brief. I have been inundated with phone and text messages from dear relatives and friends from literally all over the world. The common thread of these messages has always been the same. The messages are, what a sweet woman, what a great lady, what a very special person. Everyone loved Carol. Her winning smile, her warmth, her concern for others. In the past few weeks, where she was having a hard time, she never lost her sense of humor. And her sense of humor got me through a lot of stuff over the years. I would always tell Carol, and many times, almost every day, that she was a beautiful lady, and I always told her she was the prettiest woman in the room. Her response, as expected, was, she said, Marv, you're blind, you're losing your vision in the other eye, and that's why I look so good. And I knew to get a laugh, because she wanted you to laugh. Anyway, we will all miss her very, very much. I love you, honey. And Deborah.
Hi. It's really lovely to see all of you here. No words. And yet, we are grieving, but Mom is at peace. In her last days, we sang with her, and despite her illness, she was the one who remembered all the words. It's because she listened. She listened to her husband, her children, her grandchildren, siblings, family, and friends. She was present, and everyone in her orbit felt heard and charmed by her elegance, the spark in her eyes, and her warm smile that lit up the room. I will miss our moments shared in the zone of art making. When she painted, she left the meticulous way she kept her very orderly house behind and went to town reassembling bits of old prints, paintings, and found materials in a messy whirlwind of expression. Even in the past year, some ghost of her muscle memory knew what to do if you stuck a brush or a pencil in her hand. My mother was impeccably attired at all times, except in the art studio. And after every meal, she reapplied her lipstick and dabbed her cheeks with powder. She had such style. She also experimented with the latest trends, but the incident with the paper dress in 1970 didn't go so well. So she moved on to blonde bobs and party dresses. When Mom went in for heart surgery in 2016, the prep nurse couldn't believe my mom's beautifully done toes. She made sure to get a pedicure before the procedure. Who does that? Hard to top. I do want to take a moment to thank my mom's caregiver, Shirley, for the beautiful job she did helping my mom maintain her elegant dignity right up until her last days. As an interior designer, my mom somehow matched antique florals with modern stripes, early American primitive with eames, and it always somehow worked. She was horrified when she came to visit me once in college, and my idea of decor was a deer skull I found hiking that I proudly displayed on a side table. And then when Michael and I moved into our first home, my mother rearranged the kitchen and we couldn't find anything when she left. She had a sense of order that you alluded to. It just didn't quite jive with ours. When we were kids, she'd snug us into the back of a van in the early dark morning hours to wake up at the opening of a flea market or antique fair in Pennsylvania or Ohio, where she could barter and trade and haul stuff back to her little antique shop in Cleveland. Some of that stuff ended up in our house, where at the family dinner table, my dad would remark, "Either my butt just got really big or you switched out the chairs again." My mother had very high standards, and David, Ellen, and I worked very hard to try and disappoint her at different times in our lives. But she always adapted, and so did we. And we all knew that she loved us fiercely. When I was sort of a tomboy 7-year-old, she enrolled me in a course called White Gloves and Party Manners, which I promptly managed to fail in every category. She somehow got over it. My mom had a very interesting alternate language for anything crass or having to do with bodily functions, and she never, ever swore in our presence. So we spent our childhood passing air and making a BM. And when my dad went to work at IBM, you can only imagine how confused and horrified I was that he was spending his days there. My mother adored and doted on her grandchildren, and each of them have their own ways in which she profoundly affected their lives. Evan, Daniel, Linnea, Noah, Hannah, Eli, and Jonah. She loved you so, so very much. Evan described it as a generosity of presence, and that she made you feel like you were both in on something that didn't require words. And yet, we are all trying to find words. Carol and Marvin were together close to 65 years, totally devoted to one another. They shared the most wonderful collection of friends, many of whom are here today. It's just amazing to see you all. And the rest of whose presence we now feel, whether through the live stream or wherever they might be waiting for her to join them for a glass of wine, a giggle, and a heart-to-heart conversation. Dad, we know you lost the love of your life, and we're here for you. Like her own mother, Mom was an excellent cook. Additionally, she knew how to doctor a meal that wasn't quite her own creation, usually by adding Lipton soup mix or by utilizing some other genius culinary hack. She once presented store-bought cookies at a gathering of women at the temple after having sifted fresh powdered sugar on them. And when the group clearly expressed their delight in her supposedly homemade treat, she simply replied, "My mother loves to bake." Which is technically true, but our mom was funny, mining humor from most situations. Even as her dementia worsened, my siblings and I could always conjure her deliciously mischievous smile, and we knew she was back, if just for a moment. When my sister was little and afraid of ants, Mom took her outside and started naming all the little bugs as if they were her new friends. "Look, there's Tracy and George. They're chasing each other." Who does that? It was the way she showed up in the room with her openness and sparkle that would disarm strangers and friends alike. People in her orbit felt safe, even without words. My mother brought beauty to the world, and she listened. "We will miss your generous presence, dear Mama, and your charm, kindness, and love. We also lost our sweet dog on Friday, and I would like to think that Patch and Mom are comforting one another on their next journey." No words, and yet.
My friend and mentor, Rabbi Ann Brenner, says that people leave us in the middle of a conversation, and that we are to continue that conversation with people because they're still listening, and they're still watching over us. And in those still small moments of, I like to call it that liminal space between the morning, right before sunrise, and that's the best time to connect. And they often come to us in those hours, and you hear little words or little thoughts or a bird or other signs that you know undeniably that it's them, and they're still here. Most of the prayers that we say in Judaism are for the living because we need the constant reminder of how we're supposed to be living in this life, to be good people, that which Carol did to the nth degree. There's a beautiful prayer, the El Malei Rachamim prayer, that we sing specifically for the deceased that I will chant for you. El male rachamim, shochein bamromim, hamatzei menucha nichon al kanfei chashkina, b'ma'alot kidoshim utorim hazkar harakirim masirim et nishmata, Carol Lader, shehalcha leolamo, Ba'avur shebler neretan tzedakah biad haskarat nishmata. Bigan Eden tehei menuchata. Lachein ba'al harachamim, yastirehu beseter kenefav leolamim. Vayitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'no'omar, amen. O God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the wings of the divine presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and the pure ones who shine like the glow of the firmament. For the soul of Carol Lader, who has gone on to her world, because without making a vow, I will contribute to charity in remembrance of her soul. Therefore, may the Master of Mercy shelter her in the shelter of his wings for eternity, and may he bind her soul in the bond of life. Adonai is her heritage, and may she repose in peace on her resting place. And we all say, Amen. We'll now be instructed to continue the service. We'll be moving to the internment site, where we will complete with the beautiful Kaddish prayer.
Right, so anyone who's going to be a father, family member, grandchildren, whatever. Yeah. Here you go. Here's another pair. Here. We're just going to roll the casket near the door, and then I'll bring it right over. All right, Paupers, if you want to line up, I don't know how many are, 3 on each side or whatever. How many do they have? We have plenty of room. Switch, you know, or the middle one, whatever. Yeah. Can you come over here? Yep. You're okay. There we go. No, I just want him to come over, and then you go back into the other. No, you go. All right, if everyone can, you could please rise. All right.
Lift, please. Okay, move forward.
Okay, pallbearers, as you come out.
All right, so because we moved the service, all the cars are on the other side of the building, so we can go and the van over there also. So you can go out the back door, or you can go out this door and go right to the car. So all the cars are on that side. Before they come out, yeah. This is going to go.
Except for those that may be parked on this side, but anybody else who's on that side needs to exit the other side. All those who are going to the cemetery, please make sure that your headlights and hazards are on, okay? And we will be exiting out of the other side of the building to the left. Yeah, look, I looked in the coat rack, I didn't see nothing sitting there.